All right. So I we've just created this style here, and we want to I added ID to this table, and then so I can just apply it. All right. So let's say that I have my script here. And then in my script, I inventory items or table to be equals to document dot get element by ID, and then I have that to be I get it by an ID inventory here. So for the sake of this thing, so that I have it broken into lines and everybody can follow through. All right, so that is just to get this table. All right, so that's basically what I did here. Nothing special. Document get elements by ID, so I got it by ID. I can also get it by tag name if I want to get it by tag name. What else can I use to get this guy? Hello guys, are we together?
Very selectable.
Now I want to target this table. I want to do something to this table. So for me to do something to it, I need to to be able to get it, right? All right, so instead of calling it by ID, what else can I use to get it? I can't hear you. What? What? Tag name, right? Yeah, so I could also use tag name. Hey, this network. I can also use tag name. So we're saying that instead of using, so I have a number of options right now. I can use by ID, or I can use tag name. So, and I put a tag name table here. So if there's also a class here, I can use class name, or I can also use query selector to get it out. Okay, so but right now I just want to use get by ID. So if I use a tag name, it's going to return an array because it's possible that there are multiple tables on this page. But if it is by ID, then it returns the first element that matches that ID specified. All right, so I say document.get element by ID, and that succinctly gets the inventory items for me. And so this inventory item right here, I want to dynamically pass in the table, what's it called, these items to it. I want to pass in this class. So I can just say that I have this guy inventory item, and then I can set attributes. So normally we would do it like this. I know a couple of us know this. If we are passing in a class, we say class is equals to this guy, blue theme, and that works. So but we can use JavaScript to dynamically pass in any attribute of this table. ID is equally an attribute, class is an attribute, and any other attributes, we can use JavaScript to set attributes, put the key of that attribute, and put the value for it. So instead of manually doing it like this, we can have JavaScript do that. So we can say set attributes, and we set attributes class, then we pass in the class name. So let's say the class name is what's the class name here? Blue theme. This is the class name. We'll pass in blue theme like that. and then that works. So automatically the moment we pass in the blue theme, we can see the table change. So someone might ask, why are you passing it? Why won't you do it the usual way, just passing class equals to blue theme? Why would you want to set it from JavaScript? If you want to do something more than just saying blue theme, let's say there's other theme and you want user to set their own theme themselves, rather than you forcing what background they use to them. So you want them to be able to select options. Then setting attribute dynamically will be the only way you can do it. So let's say we have other themes. So let's say we have red theme, which is basically like this as well. Maybe everything is basically the same. If everything is basically the same, you may not. So I'm not here to teach you CSS, so you know all of that. So we may not necessarily repeat. So let's say I have this, and then here I have the background to be equals to red, and then let's say I have other themes like purple theme and whatever theme like that, so that I can give this person options, right? So I can give it options, and I say let's say I have select, right? This guy is think I'm writing Angular. So let's say I have select, and then I have options inside the select. Option, and then I ask this person to select their theme, and then I have the first option to be blue, the second option to be red, and any other theme that you've got. Okay, so, and I call this guy ID equals to themes. Okay, so I want people to be able to choose what theme they want, something like that. So I have this guy. Okay, so select theme, they can put blue theme and then put red theme. And right now I don't want to use unchange. I will just put a button to handle that. I like working small. So here I say change theme, right? Now, so if this guy clicks on this, and then he can click on change theme, and then the theme changes. All right, so here to change that theme, I want to have it wrapped inside a function. So let's say I'm using a function like this, function apply theme, okay, and in the theme that I'm applying, what I'm doing is to get what's it called, to get whatever the person supplies in this place, and then get its value, and then use that to sort to set the value. So let me say, let's selected theme be equals to document dot get element by ID, and then I have that guy. The ID for this is themes. Get element by ID, and then I have themes. Okay. like that, and then we can then say you know you can then get the value that's that is stored in there. So for each of these, let's say you give it a value, and then each of the value, by default the value defaults to what you have here, blue or red. Okay, so here you can have that. You can, let's say you just console.log, or you alert what the value is, or let me say you console.log it. Let me just say we have that. Selected theme. Selected theme. All right, so dot value gives you the value of the selected theme, right? Dot value gives you the value of the selected theme. Okay, so here let's say that we have, or you just console.log that this guy, so you can see all the elements that is got. So I'm trying to put you through, give you a tips of, so sometimes each of these elements returns something else. So if you want to see what the object of that item looks like, so you can log it, and then you can then see how to get the element of or how to get its element, right? So now we say function apply theme. We just written this function, and then we want to apply this function to when this button is clicked. When this button is clicked, so we say on click, when this button is clicked, it should call this apply function, apply theme. So let me use like this, since I'm writing JavaScript. Apply theme. Where's that guy again? Okay, so right here we've got that. So if this guy, if we click on this, we have this guy. So we can have that. This is the guy that I'm logging. So if I log the doc value of that, then you've got the, so you have, this is blue, and then this is red, like that. Now, so based on what this guy is selected, based on what this guy selects, I can change, apply the theme appropriately. I can apply the theme appropriately. So I'm trying to give you a use case why you may need to dynamically set a couple of these things like that. All right, so instead of having this guy here like this, I want to have it in here. I want to have it in here so that I can, target it as such. All right, so here we say, let's say I have this whole thing here. I have this whole thing here. All right, so I have the inventory table, this thing like that. So, and then this one here, now this is where we are setting the attributes. I will just do it very basic. I'll do it at very basic level. So we have let selected value be equals to this. Now, so here you get the right, so you can pass in the value immediately. But so let's say you want to do so much more with this selected theme than just its value, so you can just have that in the selected theme. Then I say here if selected theme equals to if selected theme the value is blue, since you know ahead, you know what you're expecting. If it is blue, then set attributes blue, you know, or if it is this thing, set attributes. But there's a better way to do this, but let's have it this way first. So we build up to that. You have this inventory set attributes blue theme, and then let's say else red theme. Since there are only two themes, right? So if it is not blue, then red is applied. Okay. Now, so currently, since we've taken it outside the distance, so we have that theme until a theme is selected and is applied. We have that guy, so they can change their theme and then change whatever, and then that got applied in there. So just a use case of set attributes. So we can use JavaScript to set any attribute, and then we can use that attribute later on. This is a simple use case, but this is not where we're actually going. So let's say we've got that inventory table there, and then let's say we now have equally have the inventory items. So that comes way before this inventory items, where you got to add the inventory items. So let's say we have a form. We have a form right here, and then this form has a couple of things that we can use to populate this item: the item name, descriptions, amount, and quantity. So let's say we've got input field and type equals to text to take the item name, and then let's say we have description. Say I'll just go basic, like I said, each item like this. You can style it yourself, please style it. And then let's say here I have text area, still input, so you can use text area for the description, and then the rest like that. So here let's say I've got the placeholder to be equals to item name, and then type equals to text still. So the placeholder here, descriptions, and then let's say the placeholder here is amount. I want to use to take amount, and the placeholder here I want to use to take what quantity. So let's say this one is number. All right, so we have this guy here, we have this guy, and so let me say impute okay, so that all my input fields are, you know, specially spaced like that. Okay, all right, so what I want to do is to get the input here and then use that to perform the, so let's say we've got submit. Okay, now so what I want to do is when someone submits this item, I want to add this to this table. When they submit this, I want to add this to this table. All right, so I'm just going to have this guy so let's say I have another function and I call it add item. Okay, so the hide item, what we're doing here is to add, of course, item to the table. Okay, so right here, this guy is needed here, and I would equally need it here. So what I would rather do is to have it displayed and have it declared globally, rather than having to, you know, declare it, you know, because I equally need this inventory item if I need to add something to this table. Guys, am I audible? Let me be sure that I'm not talking to myself.
Yes, sir, you are.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Please, is anybody confused yet? Please, if you are confused, feel free to ask your questions. Okay, so now the first thing I want to do, let me even take this guy out first. The first thing I want to do is that when this form is submitted, I want to get whatever is in submit. So I can pass on submit to this form direct like that. On submit, I'm passing in add item, that's this one here, add item, to the form submission. So I say add item, and yeah, so add item. So when the form is submitted, I will add the item like that. Okay, so right here, so I'll just say console.log adding item. I want to show you something. Okay, so if you feel whatever here, yam description, whatever amount, whatever quantity, whatever, you click on submit. So it doesn't seem to, we can't see that guy here, we can't see that this console.log highlight them here, because the moment you click submit, you know, the form is submitted and everything on the DOM got refreshed. But that's not the kind of behavior we want. We don't want the form to submit. We want to use JavaScript to process some things on that form before we send it to the next page that is for further processing, whether we're sending it to a remote server or to another page and all of that. So basically that's what we want to do. We don't want that form to submit. So for us to do that, we are going to pass an event. So I will explain this event in details as we move along. All right, so we're passing an event. An event, as it occurs in JavaScript, is occurrence at a point in time. That's what the literal meaning of event, occurrence at a point in time. So in JavaScript, event happens when you scroll down. This is a JavaScript event. I'm scrolling. When I click on a button, when I click on an input form, when I do something, when something happens in the DOM, that is an event. All right, so when that event happens, they have a default behavior. So if you want to override their default behavior so that you can do something else, why that behavior is overwritten, that's what I'm about to do now. I don't want the form to be submitted. The default behavior of the form is when you're done filling the form and you click on submit, it should submit. But because we want to maybe do validation to ensure that what they have filled in is correct and all of those things before we pass into the remote server with JavaScript, or what we want to do, we want it to calm down. Don't submit yet. Calm down. Let me do a check. Right? When we click on a button, we may want, normally when you click on a button, it does click. It handles click event. So, but if you want to overwrite that click, we want to do something else rather than it being functioning as a click, then we would prevent defaults, right? We prevent defaults so that if default behaviors is overwritten, that's what we're about to do for this guy. So I had other items passing the event of the form, and then here I'm going to pass here just a param, which stands for that event there. So the first thing I'm going to do, whether you write it in full or not, whatever you put here, of course we know that represents this event here, event form as you call it. So this is your parameter, so you can say e.prevent default. So it prevents the default behavior of wherever you pass this add item. If it is a form button, its default behavior will be overwritten. If it is a form, its default behavior will be overwritten. So this come in here now. So if you look at that again now, if you submit, so you can see adding item. We can see adding item now. It means that you can do something here, and the form doesn't submit and refresh. It doesn't refresh the DOM. So this is the first thing I want to do there. The second thing I want to do though is to get what is filled in this form here. So in JavaScript there are several ways of targeting a form. There are several ways of targeting a form. You can say document.get item by tag name and you pass in a form, get item by ID if it has an ID, or you can get forms directly, document.forms. So JavaScript has, if you have this guy, document.forms, this returns all the form on the page, right? If there are multiple forms, all the forms will be will be returned. Okay, so if you then give this one a name, so naming is important in Java. This is where names comes to play. So if you give it a name, so assuming we have multiple forms, how do you differentiate? Let's say there's another form. So let's say we have another form here, and then you have another form, then you have another form. Let's say three forms: sign up, login, and all of those things. And you say this guy here, document.forms. This returns all forms, and then how do you then target a specific one? So let's say let all forms be this. This guy returns all forms. If you log it, if you log all forms, you will see the collect is a collection of all the forms on your page. If you log all forms, you will see all forms. So add items, if this form is submitted, so you can see a collection. It returns HTML collections, and there are two elements in that collection. There's a form 1, there's a form 2, like that. So if you know their hierarchy, you can access them by the index number, maybe the first. If you know how they appear in your DOM, since you know that this one is the first form, so if you do with index 0, it gives you the first form. If you do with index 1, it gives you the second form. But this is you playing a card. You are not too sure. You can't be too sure which one is rendered first. So your best bet is to give them a name. So this is the reason you and I were giving names, so that your parents are not saying the one I born first, the one I gave birth the second. They don't call you like that. They don't say my firstborn, my secondborn, like that. They give you names so that they can easily refer to you when necessary. So we can, this guy, the same reasons we are going to give this guy a name. So we can say this guy, so let's say we call it inventory form. Okay, so we can succinctly refer to it. This guy too, we can give it another name, whatever form it is, like that. I just used it for example. So as many forms as you have, document of forms returns that. Okay, then you can then say that, okay, it's a particular form I'm talking to. So you can say that the same way you can access it by index number, you can then access them by their form name now. So here I can say I'm talking to the inventory form. So if we do this guy, this returns the inventory form. This returns the inventory form right here. So we have all form document of forms, and you have that like that. Okay, so this guy is just going to return only the inventory form, because you are accessing it. So if you look at it right now, if you click on that guy, so there is only one form returned, which is the inventory form. That's what you have here. That's the only thing that we've got there. Now that we have the inventory form, this is a way. Of course, it's not the only way. You could have easily given it an ID. You can give it by name. You can reference it by name. Get element by name, get element by tag name, get element by ID. You can just go straight to it and get it like that. But I can tell you for free that as you move on, there will be instances where you would need this guy to just get. You want to see, depending on the complexity of what you're doing or what you're working with. So you may need that guy. So now again, this guy is here that you have in here, that you have here. The input type equals to text, the name, the items, and descriptions. Them too, when you look at that form, you see that form has a couple of elements, text, this, all these things like that. Now, to easily access any of these guys, it's important that you separate them, because right now they bear their type. How do you know this one is a text? How do you know this one is a description? So you are going to give them something that separates, that distinguishes them from the pool. So you give them a name and an ID, or just a name, or just an ID, depending on how you want to access them subsequently. But some people will say there's no need for name. But I can tell you the need for name, especially if you want to do it even more dynamically. So let's say you have ID equals to item name. You will call it this guy item name, and then let's say this guy here, we give it ID, and the ID equals to item description. The ID is description, or item description, whatever you want to call it. Item description. And this one let's say we have this one ID to be equals to amount, item amount, so that we will follow the same trend. Item amount, and then here let's say we've got this one ID equals to item quantity, quantity. All right, so we have this guy, so we can easily access each of them by document by get by ID of all of them, like that. So look at what I'm saying. So if we do this, we say instead of, now it's not all form again, so let me just call it inventory form. Let's inventory form, since it's not all form again. Inventory form, we are targeting just the inventory form because of that, so we got that alone. Okay, now so I'm saying that I can get inventory item by saying that inventory item, let's inventory item be equals to document dot get element by ID, then the ID that you gave to that guy, the ID that you gave to it is item name. The ID that you gave to it is item name, so you say get element by ID, you say this guy, and then you can get the value straight on, the value if you want, or you can pass the value into another variable, so something like that. Now, so you say item name that, so you have this guy like this, and then you're going to do this for the rest too. You're going to do this for description, for amount, for this, for that. So if you look at this here, if you pass in this guy here, inventory name, like this, and then we pass in the inventory name here, and we call it yam, and we submit that. So we got yam, rendered here, but eventually what we want to do is to be able to append them to here, to this table that we got here. Okay, and we can also change the theme of the table dynamically as we have it, so but now you are going to do this for every element that you've got in the form. So if the form is large, it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of work doing get element by ID of every item. So you may want to use another method if you are very lazy like me, and you just want something that's can shorten that period. Instead of doing get element by ID of this guy, get element by ID of this guy, get element by ID of this guy, so kind of just get everything that is supplied in the form, and then iterate through and get what I need. I think that is possible. So if what works for you for now is just get element by ID, please do that. It's not a problem, it's not a crime. So this is getting element, each element, you get each element by ID, so you do that for every element like that. But I'm saying that if I don't want to do this, then it is important though then for me to give these guys a name. So I would need to give them a name, so that name becomes their key value. So I give them a name, and then so if you give it a name, it gives you a lot more flexibility. So if I give them a name, and that name can be that same ID that we've given it. So let's say the name is equals to the ID still. So this one here, so if you give each of them a name, and then so this guy, let's say the name is still item amount, item amount, and then this one, let's say, is still item quantity equals to item quantity or quantity. We did not follow, yeah, we followed it, item quantity, like that. So with this now on my hand, I can get all the values. Please, are we following?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I can get all the data rather than doing this getting. So I can say that the, since I have this guy here, so I can say the data, let data be equals to whatever is filled in, here. I get it through the form data. So there's what we call form data, which you guys will use later on if you want to upload form, if you want to upload these things like that. So if you say data equals to new form data, and you pass in this inventory form in there, this data here gives you everything inside that form. You know, it gives you everything that is filled inside that form. So you have data equals to new form data, and you pass in this form, inventory form, whatever form that you want to get the data of. And here we only have inventory form, so we've got this. Okay, now what I want to do is I may want to see what that data looks like, because this is going to return an object. That data it gives you like a prototype object that you can iterate through and then get whatever you want to get out of it. Please, if you are confused at any point in time, let me know. So if you log this data instead of this inventory form, if you log this data here, you'll see something. So assuming I have this guy here, so let's say we have yam, and then description is Benue yam. Is anybody from Benue here? Benue yam. Amount is 8,000. Quantity is 500. So put your eyes on the console here. So you see we have this form data which has a prototype of that form data, and then it has this value that you've got here. So here we've got the value, we have keys for each of those items, we have some keys, we have some distance there. But to keep it simple, I'll just iterate through each of these items, and then I can log them individually to the console so we can see that. But that gives you everything that is in that form. You can have the entries, you can have stuff like that. So if I come in here in that data and I say I can iterate through. So for, let's say, key, for key value that's inside that guy, for key value of data, console.log. The essence of this console.log is for you, before you process it in an enterprise distance, you won't ship an enterprise project with console, but when you're developing, it's always good for you to use it to debug and also to see what you are doing and get what you're doing very clearly. So let's say I say key value, so this, I'm just iterating through that object of what they have, so I can use each of them as I want. Okay, so I just say this for key value of the items inside the data, console.log the key and the value together. So if I come here, I say yam, and I say come here, I say Taraba yam, and I say amount is 9,000 and quantity is 200, and I say submit. So you'll see clearly what you got here. Item name is yam, item description is Taraba yam, item amount is 900, item quantity is 2. So without having to say get element by ID, get element by ID, I can have access to it because I given them name, so I can use their key and get their value straight up, and then operate them. All right. So if I don't want to also iterate through, if I just want to get each of the item as I want, this is iterating through each element, for each of the form elements, so you can get everything out at once. So this is to iterate through each of the form elements, and then do whatever you want. Instead of console login, do whatever you want with it. Now you can also do this if you say data, that data that you've got, if you need to get just like this, if you need to get a singular element, you just say data.get, and then you pass in the name that you gave to it. For instance, this item name, if you say data.get item name, that give you the value of the item name. Please, are we together? If I say data.get item name, so if I say data.get and put any key in this instance is the name that you gave to that form element, it will return its value. So if I say data.get whatever key name that you're giving, which is the name that you're giving to that element, it returns its value. So in this instance, say data.get item name, it will just give me yam. Data.get item description, it just gives me yam, Taraba yam. So like that. So I can dynamically, instead of writing this long get element by ID, stuff like that. So but whatever works for you works for you. Not like this is bad, not like this is bad. So I'm just trying to give you scenarios so that we know why we're putting all these things together. All right. So now here we've got these elements that we want to append. We want to append them to each of them to this place, to this table. We want them appended to that table right there. Okay, so I'm going to say that because this guy here is declared inside this scope, is not available inside this scope. We know that because I need to attach something into this table, and this guy is not available in that table. It's not available in that scope, right? So we need to make it available either by redeclaring it inside here or declaring something that is accessible to all of them. So let's say we come here and then up here we call this guy var, and we apply that still applies, is available to it, and then it's also available to this guy, is also available to this guy if I need it. So I don't have to declare it 2 times inside of this guy. So now that I know how to get the form data that is coming from the form data, and I have several ways of getting that, and please, you don't have to use the 2. Whichever one works for you, works for you. Getting the data. Please, am I still connected?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
The form. Show the form data. Okay. Perfect. So now I I want to then do the rest, which is to the append the whatever to the table, to append the this thing to that table. So I have this guy, which is the table. This is the table, inventory item, or I call it inventory table if I want. That's this guy here that we got by inventory. All right, so what I want to do is to insert rows for each of the elements that we've got. So just simply just insert a row. So let me say that here we have, let's row be equals to this table that I've got. Since it's a table, you have table has several what's it called, table, insert rows, insert cells, and all of those things like that. So if I insert a row, insert row, this is for this thing. So I can specify where, at what index of the row I want to insert to. So if I get the table length, table.rows.length, it can give me all the rows, so I can see if I want to do more dynamic stuff. But let's keep it simple for now. So I just want to insert a new row, basically, like that. This is a new row. So for each of the row would have, I'm done with the console. Each of the item here, I want to set as, so each of the row will have each of these cells. We have name, description, amount, and quantity. All right, so if here we want to, so we need to assign cells, right? So I will say rows, or let me say name cell. Let's name column be equals to row dot insert cell, insert a cell. So for this, for each of the row I will insert, because each of this item here is a cell. Each of the items that you've got in there are cells. What I'm saying is that let me do it manually first, so you get what I'm saying. Assuming I'm not doing it dynamically, and we have, let's say we have a table row. I say I'm not doing table t body or whatever. I just come in here and I say this is a td. Each of these td is a cell, and then here I come here, I say rice, and this is a cell, this is another cell, this is another cell, this is another cell. I think we have 4. So description, let's say we have Kaduna rice, and then amount is 35,000, and then the quantity is equals to 200 or something like that. So if you look at this right here, each of these is a cell, but what we want to do is to add that cell dynamically. So the first thing we did here was to add a row. And then for each of the row we then add 4 columns, which is this rice, for this, for that. That's basically what I'm doing here. So I'm going to take this out. This was just to explain. I take that out, so whatever the person fills in is what I want to add. All right, so I say name column, which is to insert that. So I can do that and just put in the value straight on. So I can put the inner HTML of that to be equals to data dot get then item name. You can use whatever, if whatever works for you. You can use this guy, inventory item, if what you like is you prefer to get it one after the other. So you can use this guy here, or you can use this guy. Either of them works. Inventory.name.value. This works. All right. So I can say name column that I may not pass it into any variable if I won't need it later on. So let's say we just say role.insert that, and then I can also insert this guy. So what I'm saying here is, you see that for each of these items we are iterating this and we are doing this. You could actually do that with this iteration instead of doing this. But let me keep it simple. I don't want to confuse some people, because you will see me repeating myself. So name column is this, and if I don't need to do anything with it, I can just do this. Role.insert new cell, and then I give it an item name. So this same way too, I would insert cells for all of them. Item description, whatever name you call it, item description, that's the name that is given to it here. So instead of doing this manually, I can use this iteration and then use that to easily append that. That's what I'm saying. For some of you, you should try that. So you have so let me format the code so it looks okay. So the first thing I'm doing here is append the name, append the description. Then again, I'm going to append the amount, then append the quantity. Okay, so item name, item description, item amount, I guess we call it item amount, and then this one is item item what again? Item quantity. Item quantity. So if you have this, so now if this guy, if this form is filled with yam, Benue yam, all things being equal, 8,000, quantity is 200, append. So we have, let me see, uncut key name is not defined. Okay, I use key name when I was explaining something here, and the guy sees as part of my code, so because of that, Bene yam amount 8,000, quantity is 200, and I do this. So you can see yam is there. I put rice, I say Castina rice, I say the amount is 45,000 and the quantity is 300. That got added. Team, apply team, change team, beans, Niger beans, amount 25,000 or whatever you want to sell your beans, quantity is 200, submit, change your team like that. Anytime, continue to add item. This is a basic example, just utilizing DOM that we've just so there are a couple of things that I discussed here. So as I was saying, that here, instead of having to, this is a repetition, and that's why we learned for loop. That's why we learned for loop. That we said that instead of anything that we are that is repetitive, it can be automated with for loop. So if I use this guy here, instead, if I use this guy for key inside this, and I use this guy here, row.distance, and then here I pass in the key. Data.get_key, and then that should work, all things being equal. So if let's say I comment out this guy here, which is the repetitive one that we did manually, one after the other. So here, what I'm doing right here is to, pass it into it like that. Just passing data.get_key, and then that got passed. Now, so if you have this guy yam Benue this, and then you have this to be 200, so you see that it works pretty much the same way like the other one was working. You say Gary, and then you say Kwara Gary. We have Gary in Kwara Gary, and it's 5,000, and it's 1,000 bags, whatever. You understand? So everything works pretty much the same way. Here, the first instance, I do it like one after the other. Second instance, I just look through each of the elements, and rather than having to treat them one after the other, I just pass in their key. So this can be very, very succinct. So, but whichever one works for you, this works. Whichever one works for you, you know how brains work is you doing it, and you get used to certain things. Once you're good, yeah, you can then move on to optimization, right? Nothing is wrong with this, but of course, the code is verbose, something like that. Now, so what I want you to do for me is to do a replica of this, where you can get input of everybody in your group. So everybody is doing this. Write a program like this to take everybody's input, like their name, their first name, their last name, their phone number, their email address, their gender. So you do that, get all of that, and then when they add, you add it to this. Then instead of this theme like this, let's say I don't want this theme like this, I want you to, let's say I don't want this if statement here. I want you to put something like this. Where is that guy again? I want you to put something like this, like impute type equals to color. So that they can choose any color as their background instead of blue or red, and whatever color they choose, you use that as the style of that guy. So whatever color they choose, you use that. Also pick the width. Also let width also be configurable, like you put a drop down of width. So when they select width, you can have that. So to do that, let me just give you a clue for some of us. To do that, it's very simple. Once you have here, when you're applying theme here, when you have this guy here, if you do this selected item dot style, if you say dot style, you can use that, and then you can do any background color, whatever. Let's say dot background color equals to whatever background color that is supplied. So you can get that and put whatever they put. So, and then again, you can style it, style dot width, and put whatever width that the person supplies. style dot whatever they supply, you can put. So your own is on you to get whatever color that this person supplies, and then use that to as the background of that table, right? Whatever width they supply, use it as the background of that table, the font size and all of those things, other stuff like that. So you can do that. So and call that configuration area, separate it. So get these, and that is what I'm going to be reviewing in the afternoon. Is it clear? Magic of JavaScript, interesting. Guys, I know some of you might have a bit of these things, but is it confusing? Is it interesting? I can see a lot of people saying interesting. Okay, so are we clear with the assignment?
No, sir.
Yes. I'm with you.
Yeah, in the aspect of the background color and width, I didn't get that part very well.
Yeah, I'm not supposed to give you, but I'm giving you a clue on how to solve it, because it's different from. I'm saying that, let's say we don't want, instead of saying select team here, we want the person to, you ask the person to select their background color here. Instead of, where is the team again? Instead of this team, let's say this team is not there. You ask them to select their background color, and then you ask them to select the width. Let's say text, or you use select for it, or you ask them to type the width of their table, whatever. So, or since maybe you don't want them to mess up your this thing, you can put select if you want to limit the option. So let's say you have select whatever you want, then you have option, and then let's say you've got 200, and you give them the options that you want, so they select the option, and then so what I'm saying is that everything that you've got here, instead of styling it manually, the width, the margin, everything, take input from user instead of doing it manually. The color, the width, the margin, everything, take input from the user and then apply it. And I gave you instance of how to apply style sheet. This is simply how to apply style. If you have that element, the style, background color, you put whatever background that you got from the user, style dot color, whatever font color you get from the user, style dot width, whatever width you pass in, like that. I've solved it for you, but I'm not supposed to solve it for you. You understand?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
So guys, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, please.
It's just clarity on particular details we are asking for
from your user. The details: first name, last name, email address, phone number, and the agenda. You understand? So they supply that, just like I'm taking this food item here. So whatever they supply, you then append it to the table, and they equally have option of choosing the background color they want, and then they can apply the theme, and then that should automatically apply. So and that table should change to whatever theme they want.
So then the widths, won't the table look so messy if they have like different widths?
The idea is just for you to see how you can, assign different widths. That's why I'm saying that you can limit the type of the inputs, the type of width you are expecting. So if you are giving them select, if you give them input from the type in anything, they can type 2. But if you do select, they are limited to what you put in times as select. So they can put 800, 1000, 500, any width that you feel makes sense, you put it inside the options. Makes sense?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please go through the video again. If you did not get it, even if you get it, please go through the video. You might have one or two things to pick.
All right, sir. Please, I have a question, sir.
Go ahead, please.
All right, sir. First is I want to ask, what is responsible for recalling the format data you entered into a form? Just like when you enter those data, when you wanted to enter another one, you could the browser could highlight, okay, this was the format data you inserted. And then secondly, I want to also ask, when you refresh the data you inserted previously were no longer there,
Yes.
what actually is also responsible for retaining our data? Thank
Okay.
you, sir.
All right. So now, the what he's asking is that if we add item now, if we add any item that we had now, uh, they got added, you can continue to add it to be appending, but when we refresh, it goes away. So the DOM that you have here doesn't retain data. It doesn't retain dynamic data. It doesn't retain it. The only way you can have it retain its data is if its source remain constant. For instance, if it's coming from a remote server and each time it loads, you get the data and then it's rendered on the distant, or you save it in the local storage or in the web storage or wherever storage locally, and then you can pick it from that. Let's say you save it in a JSON file in your local directory, you pick it from there and render it like that. But if, like we are doing here now, everything you got it here and it's not saved anywhere. All these things are not saved. The moment you refresh, it goes away. So why it's appending when you're doing it is because there's no refresh happening, and that's why we prevent the default there. So that because when the form submits normally, it changes, it saves and refreshes the DOM. So we say no, just keep the states constant like that, so that we can continue to work with whatever input that we're getting from the user. But the moment you refresh, since we are not saving it anywhere, everything disappears. So later on, you'll see us working with local storage, we're saving it somewhere, and later we'll change the local storage to a remote server. We'll begin to work with APIs, and then we're saving it to a remote server, and we can get it back and all of those things like that. But right now, it's saved nowhere. You refresh, it disappears. Clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes. All right, guys. So that you can have access, I'm going to be sharing. I recorded this as well locally. And we equally have a recording online. Please do yourself a favor of going through it again and again to be sure